support taxing food or really raising any other tax as a way to balance the budget. We had some discussions last year related to a tax reform bill, and what we were looking at there, and it did involve the possibility of bringing back the food tax, but the exchange for that was getting rid of a significant chunk, and possibly over a number of years, all of the state income tax. When we look around the United States, we see that states that do not have an income tax far and away outperform states that do have an income tax. So if we want to have economic growth in West Virginia, we have to look at what's working in other states. And what I would say about the food tax, because one of the concerns that people raise, and perhaps is a legitimate concern, is about the poor. It's important to note that anybody who's using any type of government assistance in terms of SNAP benefits and so on, there is no sales tax on any of those purchases. So the poorest of the poor would not have been affected by bringing back any type of a sales tax on food. But somebody who makes minimum wage in West Virginia is about $17,500 a year. In West Virginia, we have a very low kick-in terms of our income tax, which means that you start paying income tax in West Virginia even if you're making minimum wage. In fact, the average minimum wage earner in West Virginia will pay about $500 a year in income tax. So a person of low income would have not necessarily, because they at that income level would certainly qualify for SNAP benefits, but they wouldn't necessarily have paid any additional sales tax. What they would have paid would have been much less in income tax. So when we put that bill together last year, we could show repeatedly that it was not going to increase the taxes on the poorest people in West Virginia, which was one of the goals, because we don't want to cause people who can't afford to pay to not pay more, which obviously they can't afford. So by itself, I would never really want to institute any tax to balance the budget. We just don't need to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Finch?
Thank you. I absolutely would oppose a food tax for the reasons that Senator Carnes has described, but also because those working families who aren't eligible for SNAP benefits, they don't need to pay food tax either. And they're the folks who are working 2 and 3 jobs at minimum wage to make ends meet, and who aren't at liberty to spend leisure time with their families. And that's what we need to promote. We need to promote family values that are so dear to us in West Virginia, and we need to ensure that these minimum wage workers are getting paid what they're worth. And that may cost the bottom line of major corporations. One thing that I want to say about the minimum wage is that in West Virginia it applies to employers with 6 or more employees. So many of the small businesses that we frequent here in the county would not be affected by an increase in the minimum wage. Who would be affected are the major corporations that employ lots of folks at minimum wage. And at $8.75 an hour, someone can't possibly be expected to only work 40 hours a week and be able to support their family. At the same time, those folks who do have a family are eligible for SNAP. They're eligible perhaps for Medicaid. And that amounts to corporate welfare, because we are subsidizing the food, the health care, sometimes the housing of employees of major corporations that truly have the ability to pay their employees better wages. But in contrast to what we see in education, these aren't folks who have the ability to organize, and they're not folks who have unions knocking on their doors. So we have to, in government, help these people to live better lives. I think that what we learned from the New Deal era is that we can have a time of great prosperity if working people are given a hand up.
Thank you.